Morning guys, it's Saturday, it's 3 Celsius, it's raining, we've got a 12-kilometre run to do, and while we're out there I'm going to talk about the lessons I learned from doing my first ultra marathon earlier this year. So let's get going. Thankfully the rain stopped for a minute, I can take my hood down. It has this annoying tendency to have the little string or cord flapping about on the top, and it's going tap 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 with every step, which is quite annoying. On to what I learned from my first ultra marathon, which was the 53-kilometre Spire Ultra in May 2023. By the time I completed that, the first thing I learned was that I am actually capable of getting around a 50k race within the cut-off time, which is a big worry beforehand, having never even run half the distance prior to starting the race. I had no idea whether I was going to be able to make it round, but having done so now, it's a big confidence boost for any ultras I enter from now on of a similar distance. I've entered the Shires and Spires Ultra, which is a little bit longer, 56 kilometres, so I'm fairly confident if I turn up on race day in decent condition and don't do anything silly, I'll make it to the finish. Something a bit silly, but which I don't regret at this point, that I did just before I was due to start my training plan for the last ultra. I actually walked a very similar route, the walking route that the race is based on, in its entirety. So it was over 50 kilometres, about a week and a bit before I was due to start my first week of training, and having never walked anything like that distance before, that kind of built up some fatigue in my legs and meant that injuries, mainly runner's knee, cropped up only a week and a half into my actual running training. So that's a lesson learned. When you're about to start your training plan for an ultra, make sure you arrive at the beginning in good condition, with a few sensible weeks of sensible mileage leading up to it, fit and healthy, not having done anything stupid. But for a few reasons I am glad I did that on the first go, because for one thing it showed me that I could make the distance. It actually took me 12 hours to walk the route, and the cut-off for the race is 9 hours, so it didn't allay all my fears, but just knowing that I could make it the distance, even just walking, that was a confidence booster, and I took that with me into my training. But knowing I had to knock 3 hours off of my finishing time to meet the 9-hour cut-off, so that's where the element of doubt remained. But it was still a confidence booster, just having got around 50k before the actual race. I was hoping the new Enduro battery would solve one problem I've been having with the GoPro, where occasionally it just won't start recording, so I have to open the battery compartment, slide the battery out a bit, reseat it, close the battery compartment, and then it's working again. Just had to do that with the new battery, so drat. The next lesson I learned from my first ultra was about the kit I used on the day. Thankfully I'd practiced with it on my long runs leading up to the race, so I was fairly confident, but you never know how it's going to cope over the entire distance and the 8 hours 7 minutes it took me to get around. But I did find a good jacket, this lightweight waterproof one I'm wearing today, apart from the tapping of the cord on the hood, which I can probably sort out somehow. It's very good, very comfortable and very lightweight, and it keeps the water out. Fairly breathable as well, so you don't get too sweaty in here. The vest I wore, the Salomon one, perfect, it was the 12 litre, and that did everything I needed to, so I'll be happy to use that for any ultras I do in the near future. The shoes I wore were the Speedgoat 5s from Hoka. I'm wearing them today, still a fantastic shoe, very comfortable over the distance, and no trouble with blisters or anything like that, although I did tape the parts of my feet that are prone to getting blisters. So just having that base set of kit that you know can cope in those conditions over that distance, I'm not saying they'd be perfect for every race, it just gives you that peace of mind. I'm approaching 5k on this run now, so that brings me to another thing I learned on race day, which was my fueling protocol for that distance and those conditions, whereby at 5k I'll eat half a flapjack as well as having some water, and I also have water in between the two 5k eating stops as well. So I'll get my flapjack out in a second, walk up the hill and eat that as I go. Right, that's the fueling done. So although I can't assume that flapjack's going to work for me in every race in all conditions, I think it's good just to keep my stomach used to that, so I've got that as a kind of baseline that I can use the majority of the time. And then when my long runs on the training plan do finally start being long enough for it to be worthwhile, I can start introducing some gels, the SIS gels that I used on the half marathon. I can alternate those with the flapjack and start bringing out the electrolyte drink that I used on the race as well, which seemed to work well for me. I'll just practice with everything that I'm going to be using for the Ultra, with the SIS gels being something new that I'll be introducing this time around. This is a map of the Chesterfield round walk, which is the 50-kilometre walk I did just before I started my ultra training last time around. Again, probably not my best move ever, but it did teach me some lessons and give me some confidence for the race, so can't complain too much. And that is the route that the Spire Ultra race is based on, with just a few detours for safety. So I got another good go at practicing the entire route, which was helpful for navigation on the day. The next lesson or piece of experience I gained from running that first ultra is just how it feels when your legs don't want to go anymore in the later stages of the race. I mean, I got to my first ever marathon distance during the race in about 6 hours 20 something. I was not going fast at this point and I was feeling pretty tired, but then over the next almost 2 hours I got to experience what it's like when your legs really give up. Just watching someone run when they're tired, you're kind of willing them to just, you know, pick the legs up and put some effort in. But when you're actually in that situation, your legs just feel so heavy, it's so hard to move them. And in my case, what I also found was, if I did force myself to set off running on ground that's not necessarily smooth and flat, I didn't trust myself to catch myself if I tripped or slipped or there were any issues with remaining upright. I didn't feel that I had the reflexes in me or the strength to catch myself, at least not without injuring myself. So that made me wary of going any faster than a walk or gentle jog if I could manage it. I'd like to think that with experience you can kind of push past that a bit, trust yourself a bit more and keep going a bit faster for a bit longer, and that's something I'm aiming to have a go at in my second ultra in May 2024. The next thing I learned about ultras was about the other competitors on the day. So many people turned up that day who were just much fitter and stronger than I was. I was really impressed with the quality of the other people turning up to race. There were people of all ages, men and women, and 80 or 90% of them just took off and I never saw them again. So that was really impressive and inspiring. I want to turn up to my next race feeling like I'm not going to be stuck at the back of the pack necessarily, and I may be able to keep up with more than 20% of the people around me, which would be a great feeling. Gives me something to aim for, and I just yeah, I'm just really impressed with how my fellow ultra runners can turn up super strong on the day. So I know what I've got to aim for. Another thing I learned is the importance of being able to navigate the route correctly. So it's so easy to go wrong. I bumped into another runner, also called Mark, on the day, and I saw him go wrong, too far ahead of me for me to say anything about it. And then he'd appear behind me, overtake me, and then, you know, looked like he was going to go wrong again. I had to correct him at least once while we were out on the course, and he did run with me for a short period of time, and I was telling him where to go, but then I was too slow for him, so he took off, and he did finish ahead of me. But if he'd not gone wrong, things could have gone even more smoothly for him. So with my first race, it's local to me, I could explore all of it several times before the day, whereas this one, it's a 90-minute drive to get to the start point. So I don't think I will get to explore the route prior to race day, so I need to make sure that my navigation is up to scratch. And thankfully I'll be doing at least some of it with my good friend Phil and Ashley, of course, both of whom are fantastic ultra runners, and I've done the course in both directions, so we should be good as long as I stick with them. And another thing that happened to me on the first race is I set off. It was a downhill section to begin with, but it was fairly narrow, so I was kind of doing the pace of those around me, which was a bit faster than I'd intended, but it was downhill, so it wasn't too bad. But then after only 1 or 2 kilometers into the race, my heart rate was so much higher than I would have hoped it to be that I had to keep walking to try and rein it back in. So I'm not sure exactly what I've learned from that, except to say don't be surprised if your heart rate goes through the roof, as well as, of course, don't get caught up with the traffic at the start line and go faster than you need to. I think we'll be okay with the race that sets off from Naseby, because there's a road section to begin with plenty of room for faster runners to go past me. Luckily I had the foresight to book 2 days off work after the race weekend, so I had Sunday, Monday and Tuesday to relax and recover after the Saturday race, because wow, that hits you quite hard. Sleeping was a big problem. Just trying to get to sleep, your legs just don't feel comfortable in any position, they're sore and aching, you have to keep changing positions, but then the soreness builds up and it hurts to move and change positions, so you're just constantly waking up throughout the night. So that takes a couple of days to go away, and I'm sure you can become accustomed to it and build up your tolerance after a while. But for me, after that first race, yeah, don't expect to be sleeping well or to be comfortable in bed for at least a couple of days, and give yourself the time and space to recover. And then I suppose the final bonus lesson, if you are planning on taking a camera with you on race day and filming your experience, when you do the bits where you're talking to camera, don't save the majority of them for when you're taking a walking break, going up a hill, that kind of thing. Otherwise your friends and colleagues at work will relentlessly take the mickey and just claim that you were walking the entire time rather than running it. So thanks guys, much appreciated. So I'll be a bit more careful to film the running sections this time around, I think. Bastards. I'm actually on that first section of the Spire Ultra, this narrow track that goes downhill, where I got a little bit carried away with the people around me. It's quite steep, it won't look it on camera, but this is the track. There we go then. 12k steady done on the trails. Had a really good run. The training effect was threshold according to Garmin, so par for the course on anything above an easy run really. So I'll take that, and I'll have 8k to do on Sunday morning, and hopefully I'll see you then. Thanks for following along guys. If you do want to subscribe to my channel, it is free. Just press the button and watch the subscriber count go up by 1. Thanks again, I'll see you soon.